You were born with individual strengths and a unique purpose. Don't let fears, false beliefs, or life's happenings diminish your influence. It's time to live and lead for impact. Host Kirsten Ross, expert of transformation, will help you defeat the drama and overcome the trauma that can stop you in your tracks. You'll gain focus, find confidence, and take bold action. Unleash passionate, purposeful you. Let's go.
Welcome to Live and Lead for Impact. I'm Kirsten Ross Vogel, your host and team performance pro. I am here with Phil Strazzulla. Phil is an entrepreneur and the founder of Select Software Reviews, a website dedicated to helping HR and recruiting teams to find and buy the right software through in-depth expert advice. Phil started his career working in venture capital before getting his MBA from Harvard Business School. Welcome, Phil.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining. So I am a human resource professional, actually. And so, for many years. And so I'm kind of excited to hear about your work. And certainly over the course of my career, software has become more integrated into all of the HR stuff and certainly recruiting. So, I'm anxious to hear. So tell me more about your work and the impact that you're making with it in the world.
Yeah, sure. And yeah, I noticed all the lovely SHRM certifications after your name was first connected on LinkedIn. So I run a website called Select Software Reviews where we have a team of 10 people now that all we do is research HR technology. So everything from the sort of blocking and tackling, like paying people and ATSs, through the more advanced stuff like people analytics and using artificial intelligence to source candidates or vet people or schedule or whatever. The basic idea is that this stuff is changing really quickly. It's becoming, to your point, more and more important for people's jobs. And it's really complicated and expensive, and you can fall into lots of pitfalls. So we do the research, we put it on our site for free. We've got a community where you can ask questions. You've even got a job board if you're looking for what's next in your career. And then the way our business makes money is we have advertising on the site. In terms of impact, around 100,000 companies a month use our research to figure out what systems to buy. And that number, thankfully, has grown a lot. We just started about 3.5 years ago. So every month it seems to be growing and growing thanks to people helping us spread the word.
That's awesome. So do you also include like where to post jobs kind of things? I mean, there's all kinds of different software to, for applicant tracking, et cetera. But I feel like one of the little snafus in recruiting right now, I mean, of course, we have a super tight job market, so there aren't as many active job seekers as it is, but it also feels like all the job boards, it's just a little more difficult to kind of connect, between the job poster and the candidates who are looking. Do you also do anything with that as well?
We do for certain areas. So we have listings on our site for diversity job boards, for remote job boards. And as I mentioned, we have this people ops job board that has all these really forward-thinking HR jobs. We also do have a general best job boards, but it's kind of like your obvious stuff like Indeed, LinkedIn, etc. And then we've got a couple of interviews with HR people around here's how I get reach and whatnot. And then we also have the applicant tracking systems, many of which will actually help you to distribute your jobs, whether it's through just sort of blasting it out or more sophisticated programmatic type stuff. And then the other thing on the talent sourcing side is there's all these really interesting tools that you can use to find and message candidates. LinkedIn Recruiter's the one that most people are familiar with. Then there's a bunch of others that have an equal or sometimes even larger database with better response rates because everybody's getting spammed on LinkedIn these days. And then there's actually this other kind of category that's interesting where there's basically artificial intelligence that can take your job description and it'll be like, oh, okay, you're looking for a Java developer with 5 years of experience who lives in Boston. We're going to go find a bunch of those people. We're going to message them, and the people that get back to us, we're going to put them on your calendar. And all you really have to do as a recruiting person is upload that job description. And then when you get candidates, say, this is a good person or this is not a good person, which is kind of crazy and cuts down on your time to source drastically if you're a full desk recruiter.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I would be really, well, I'm going to have to go check out your site for sure. Cause I think that would be so helpful. So What experiences have motivated you to make this unique impact?
So I had started an HR tech company almost 10 years ago at this point. And through building that business, so a lot of times I would spend talking to HR people, and I'm not a very good salesperson. So I would just sort of like ask them like, what's going on in your company? What's keeping you up at night, et cetera. And most people were talking about technology. And what was frustrating to me is that they were buying a lot of the wrong systems for the wrong reasons. So for example, somebody might have a relationship with their payroll provider, and that payroll provider might have an applicant tracking system, and they might buy that one just because it's easy and they already have a relationship with that vendor, but it's probably the worst applicant tracking system you've ever seen. And then, your staff, your colleagues, your candidates have to deal with it. So I just kind of kept seeing these same issues over and over again. And I was like, you know what, like these poor decisions on the tools part of your job are hurting your career. They're making it so that the executive team doesn't trust your decision making. They're making it so you can't recruit the right people, so your company doesn't grow. This is actually like a really big issue. And so I started this video series called Whiteboard Wednesdays, where I would just talk about something for 3 or 4 minutes in a video on LinkedIn. And that got popular, and I just really loved doing that. And I thought, could I somehow make this a business? And so I just started doing research into how I might kind of create like a little niche media business. And one thing led to another. And here I am 3.5 years later.
That's awesome. I love that. And how fun. Yeah. Just those short little snippets on LinkedIn sharing valuable information. Sounds like it was the start.
It was, yeah. And I got to give a shout out to all the people that liked and shared those videos, because that's kind of what kept me going week after week for hundreds of videos, But yeah, it was fun. I really enjoyed it.
That's great. So what current challenge stands in the way for you personally in making your bigger, bolder impact? And we're going to create some strategies around that. And so a quick little bit of coaching with me so that it can help you and then serve our listeners. So is there a challenge, a personal challenge?
Yeah, I think personally, I am probably not as aggressive as I should be. I'm somebody that, I'm an entrepreneur, right? Like I'm taking a risk, but I am not as risk hungry as many of my peers. And so, our business has been profitable kind of since day one, or not day one, but maybe day 180, which is pretty decent. And we've grown through revenues and all that stuff and kind of grown at a very measured pace. And I think that the opportunity is quite large in front of us. I mean, 100,000 companies a month is great, but how many millions of companies every quarter are buying new systems? And how do we get in front of those people? And so in order to kind of capture that broader market, I think we need to take more risks as a business. And that's something that personally, I like to take a lot of risk, but like measured risk, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So I hear a couple of things in what you're saying. In one comparison, so I think, you and I are just meeting, but if I were to coach you, I would say get clear on your own goals and not based on comparisons of others, and that risk reward, we only, we need to use our personal knowledge, our personal current life, life circumstances too, to set realistic expectations based on what really works for us. I mean, we can always doing that comparison game, I think, can get us into lots of challenges, because there are some people that are just putting everything on the line and have no life balance and are just going for the gusto. And you can see it in the numbers, but we each have to decide, how much do we want to give to the business. So I guess that's one thing I would say is, step back and take that time to visualize what you want. And I always encourage to, you don't just create a business, especially when we're entrepreneurs, you create business and life. And so how do you want business and life to work together, and what's the blend of all of that? And then from there, like I said, those realistic expectations. I think back, I actually started my business to get out of an abusive marriage. So I was going to be a single mom. So my goals at that time were very different, because it was certainly around needing some life balance. And, I wasn't going to be traveling a lot and doing those kinds of things way back then. This is, 20 years ago. So empty nester now, different phase of life. So, but anyway, based on our phase of life, setting goals based on that. Does that resonate at all?
It does. Yeah. Especially the part around comparison to others, because I think that we're all so different, right? Like some people, they need to take the biggest risk. Some people need safety, and I'm obviously somewhere in between. And the other point that resonates for sure is this, when you're an entrepreneur, probably more so than other careers, you are mixing your work and life a lot, and you have to make a decision about how much life do you want and how much work do you want. And I guess for me, I've got like a 6-month-old son, and I just love spending time with him and the rest of my family. And so it's really important for me to have things outside of just building my website and getting to the next milestone.
100%. Oh my gosh. And see, I'm going to be that old sage right now. As I shared, I'm an empty nester now. My boys live in Chicago, so they're like about 4 hours away from me now. And, so it's a different life. And one thing that I do not regret is every moment that I invested in spending time with them. And I absolutely made sacrifices to make that happen, and no regrets. So, you have a 6-month-old, man, just soak up that time. And I know a million people tell you this, like it's a click of a finger when you look backwards, and it's so true. But you will never regret the time and any sacrifices that you make to create all those memories and the foundation that you're creating now for a very important relationship. There are pros and cons and beautiful things and challenges of every stage of life with your kids. And right now is where you're creating that trust and the strong foundation of a relationship as you need to communicate and go through tough things like we all do. So, that's what I'm going to say about that.
That's good to hear. I'll keep that in mind, honestly, when I'm going about my day and trying to figure out, do I try to answer, 5 more emails or go for a walk with Luke?
Yes. And be present in those moments. Yeah. You don't get them back. All right. So now though, let's take a quick look at building a high performing team. So sometimes risk is taking on the expense of bringing in team members, but what that allows us to do is then delegate work. And so, is it possibly time, because we can build while still having good life balance as entrepreneurs. If we build that team, and it can be scary. Of course, you're like looking at the software that's helping HR people, but are there, duties, tasks that you should be delegating to others? So, I heard you talking about answering emails, et cetera. So a way to decide if it's time, and if you haven't done this already, start to create some lists of the activities that you're engaged in that really someone else would be better suited for. What do as again, the beauty of being an entrepreneur and it's your own business is you get to decide how you spend your time in the business and on the business. So there's designing the business, and then there's the work of the business. So which of the tasks, the visioning and all of that do you want? And then where do you want to start creating the list of the things that you hope to delegate either now to current people that you have? Get better at delegating. And I have the 6 simple steps of great delegation that makes it super easy to ignite team follow through and be a powerful delegator. But so create that list of things that might be the answering the emails, et cetera. So they still get done, but it doesn't have to be you. So it's the things that you or others on the team, you could elevate the tasks that you're involved in and spend more time in your own strengths if you recapture time by delegating duties to others. And then the other thing is, what are some of the things that aren't happening at all in the business because no one has had time, but it would be really important in moving the business forward to where you want it to go. So that list starts to create the job positions. Now you're going to look at those tasks and see, like, would they fit well in one human, or do we maybe need a few different humans? And then look at the number of hours, et cetera. And then from there, you can decide if you need part-time, full-time, just outsourcing, et cetera. But what would make most sense of all these tasks? And then of course, where to post and the resources for all of that. And then it's using really, good sifting and behavioral based interviewing, et cetera, to make sure that they're a fit on your team. So you can have it both. You can have some good life balance and still build in a way that works for you.
Yeah, I like that. One of my quarterly goals for myself is to not do stuff, which basically means, as opposed to running an A/B test or building a email cadence or whatever, telling somebody else how to do it and to do it, and giving them success metrics and a little bit of advice to be successful. And it's going okay. I mean, there's so many things in our business, and we're kind of growing. And so there's always things that come up, and some of those things are things that only I can do. But slowly but surely, we're sort of, getting SOPs in place, as well as getting the right people in place to do those things. And now I've actually started to look at my personal life and understand what are the things that I could outsource there, whether it's, booking travel or I don't know,
Mowing
finding
the
the right
lawn.
baby toy or whatever, like all these things that maybe I could just, have somebody else do that stuff for me. I think one of the biggest issue is you kind of have to give people like, a credit card or something like that, which is a little scary. But otherwise, it's kind of a nice thing to take these administrative tasks off your plate.
100%. Yes. And I love that you're already thinking in that way too. Yes. Personal activities, anything that we can outsource so that we're powerfully choosing how we get to use our time and really focusing on what's most important to us. I think a lot of people we don't think about like our time and our minutes. That's our money. That's our currency. And so we have a vision of what's most important to us, but in our life, is it aligned with that vision? And we have to be powerful kind of no-sayers to design the life that we want, because so much comes at us and there are so many needs. And so being really intentional with our time is so important, and saying yes and no in a way that's aligned with the vision that we're creating is how we get there.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. It's hard to, especially if you think you're the best person to do something, to delegate it and to be okay with whatever outcome happens. But it's really essential, because otherwise you don't have, like in my case, like I don't have a business if I can't delegate. If I'm trying to do everything, then I'm just, a one-man wrecking crew, and that doesn't scale, and it also leads to a very scattered work life.
Exactly. Well, for anyone, we increase our circle of influences as business owners by powerfully delegating. Now, there are keys to delegating well, because you still want to hold people accountable to specific expectations. So you get to set the standards, the deadlines, et cetera. And then, hopefully it's an engaged team. It's not through, fear or consequences, but an engaged team who's excited to be a part of this big thing, and help to make it happen. But if they're a coordinated extension of you, you get to make more impact, make more things happen.
Yeah, definitely. And we've tried to create the right culture where people, they have the necessary tools and direction, and they're sort of proud of the impact that they're making, right? Because that's kind of, we're all motivated by this thing that you've honed in on, of how our efforts actually like meaning in the world. And obviously you got to do some stuff that's not the most fun in the world, but at the end of the day, you should feel really good about what you're doing.
Yes. And hopefully everyone's spending time in their areas of strength. And that's the beautiful thing. We're all wired differently and we all have different strengths. And so there's someone who would absolutely love to answer emails and do those kinds of things. It would light them up. So that's awesome. And I heard you talk about SOPs and those standard operating procedures. That's the other cool thing, is as we bring other people on and need to teach them, it requires us to document or at least do that knowledge transfer. And then that person can document as they learn. That's kind of an efficient way sometimes to get things documented. But ultimately, you want those good documentation of your processes anyway, and then take a look at your processes and see if there's ways to make them more efficient. So, so thank you so much for sharing that and being a bit vulnerable about what's going on. And yes, I'm so excited for you. Enjoy that 6-month-old and all the time that you'll be able to carve out as you're running a successful business. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
We definitely will do our best.
Yeah. Just as a reminder, I am talking to Phil, and his website is selectsoftwarereviews.com. So that's where you can find his information. And of course, that link will be on today's show notes. But I want to circle back and ask you, what words of wisdom do you have for others who want to make their own impact in the world?
It's a really great question. And I think for me, I've always tried to figure out what's resonating with me. There's so many things you can do in the world, right? You could be a teacher, you could be a coach, you could try to start a business. And for whatever reason, since I was a little kid, like I always looked up to people that started businesses. It just fascinated me. Like, how do you do that? How do you become the CEO of something? And so for me, it was important to follow that pursuit, but then also think about, how do I feel good at the end of the day about what we're doing and the people that we're helping? And so I think it's just a lot of introspection, journaling. I'm a big meditator, talking to people in your life that hopefully you've got one or two people, whether it's a family member or friend, who you can talk to about what kind of gets you going, or what you look at and admire, and just really pay attention to that stuff, because there's something about the way that you're built that makes you drawn to that path, and you should follow that. It's hard sometimes to do that, because maybe you have to give up the path that you're on, or do something a little bit scary. But I think that at the end of the day, if you're really drawn to something, and you admire certain types of people, that's a good indicator that that's where you should spend your time.
That's awesome. Yeah. And having that passion that ignites us is what will help have the tenacity to move mountains, to do that thing too, whatever it is for you.
That's it. Yeah, that's exactly right. And that passion, it's innate. Like for some people, they're passionate about, I don't know, playing golf or something like that. And for other people, they love sales, and, some they're computer programmers. Like whatever it is for you, just chase that thing.
Yes, it's in you. Don't squelch it. Let that rise. Have that be your call to action to make your own unique impact in the world. Well, thank you so much, Phil. I really appreciate you joining me today. And I'm going to be going and checking out your website. And I encourage everyone else who's listening to do the same. Even if you're not a human resource professional, if you're an entrepreneur building a team, you need to know the right software to invest in, and some of the technology that's available to help you find good people to build your own team. As we were saying, in this job market, there are not as many passive job seekers. And so you want to really take advantage of, sourcing to find those really good people, and then doing good job sifting of those who might not be a fit, and getting to the key people that you'll want to add to your team. So again, it is selectsoftwarereviews.com. And I want to invite you that if you are bumping against any challenges in building your own bigger, bolder impact, hop into the myimpactacademy.com. You can join by 2 weeks free. Go to myimpactacademy.com/join. And there are tons of audios, videos, PDF downloads, and also time with me every other week via video. So it's live. You can get your questions answered, etc. Or feel free to grab 30 minutes on my calendar. Go to myimpactacademy.com/book call. And you can just grab 30 minutes. We'll have a chat and see how I might be able to help. So thanks again for listening. If you want more information about Phil, go to today's show notes. You can find those at defeatthedrama.com. Click on that podcast tab and go to episode 298. Thanks again for listening.